I'm standing on the stage at Theatre Works in Hartford, where Christmas on the Rocks is currently running through the end of December. We're going to be spending the day here talking with the actors and one of the playwrights and one of the directors here at Theatre Works in Hartford on 89.5 FM WSKB for both the Westfield News Show and Artsbeat Radio. Our special thanks to the people at Theatre Works. Peter Coles is our engineer at 89.5 FM WSKB. I'm Mark Auerbach, and my co-host today will be Patrick Berry.
Do, do, do. Christmas time is here. Do, do, do. Christmas time is here.
Christmas time is coming. There's snow falling on the street. The holidays are near. Shoppers buying Christmas trees. We'll have a ball. We'll have a dancing and all. Christmas time is here. Christmas time is here. The New Year's Eve is coming. We'll all sing the old lang syne. I'll whisper in your ear. I'll be yours, so please be mine. We'll have a ball. We'll have a dancing and all. Christmas time is here. Christmas time is here. This is the time for love. This is the time for cheer. Sitting by the fireplace, I tell you how much I love you, my dear. This is the time for love. This is the time for cheer. We'll have a ball. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. The New Year's Eve is coming. We'll all sing the old lang syne. I'll whisper in your ear. I'll be yours, so please be mine. We'll have a ball. Dancing and all. Christmas time is here. Christmas time is here. Bells are ringing, children singing. Christmas time is here. Bells are ringing, children singing. Christmas time is here. Christmas time is here. Christmas time is here.
Good morning again, everybody. Thursday, December 6, 2018, just after the top of the hour. Mark G. Auerbach is my guest co-host today. We're down here in Hartford at Theatre Works.
Yeah, we're on the set of Christmas on the Rocks, which is running through December 23rd. twhartford.org for your tickets, and you better get your tickets now because there are two.
Don't walk. Right?
Run,
Is that
don't
the old
walk.
phrase?
This is my first choice of shows for the holiday season. And with us, Tom Bloom, Jen Harris, and Randy Harrison, who are the three people who must play a dozen characters over the course of 90 laugh-filled minutes.
Now, and it's playlets was the term you used, right? It's individual little...
I've heard people say that it's 7 sketches. I don't use S words well on the radio, so because of my sibilant S sound, so I call them playlets.
Good for you.
I made up the word.
What is wrong with you?
I made up the word.
Playlet's great.
It works.
I think it's great.
It works. So I will say, ladies and gentlemen, I went and saw the show. Was Friday the 30th opening night? Mm-hmm. It was. So I saw. Wow, I was at opening night to a major performance. Go figure. I saw it on opening night. It was downright hilarious. I was expecting to laugh. Mark told me to get ready, to laugh nonstop throughout the performance. Sometimes I take things with a grain of salt when Mark tells me, but he was absolutely right this time. So it was a wonderful show. I said this earlier in the evening, or earlier in the show. Thank you to the three of you for entertaining me that night. It was fantastic. I applaud each of your skills. But, we also talked about the nuances, the little things that kind of, the walking, the tilting of the head, whatever it might be, that just, and these are the things that you and Randy, you mentioned it, in a small setting like this, which is under 200 seats, you're really engaged with the audience, and the audience, I mean, they're right there. That's what I love about small theater too, as a spectator, as an audience member, because you're right there, and it really is fantastic to experience that. So I urge everybody, run, don't walk to the website. I guess you don't really have to go anywhere; just log on, right?
Yeah, just log on. Yeah.
Just limber up your fingers for the typing.
I know that with the bright lights, you don't see the audience necessarily, but I know that for not Christmas on the Rocks, but the prior show, I was sitting in the last row, and it's as though a performance is happening in your living room. I mean, it's
It really
that
is.
close, and you see nuances and things that you definitely don't see when you go see a Broadway show in a big Broadway house.
Well, and one of the little nuances is the very opening of the show, where Tom's alone in the bar, and he's clicking through the TV. I can't tell you how many times, because I was sitting over here, I can't tell you how many times I looked up. I did the same. I must have looked up 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Right.
Hook, line, and sinker, I
one of those
bought it.
special skills.
Got it. I believe
On the
it.
back of your headshot, right?
Yeah,
Your special
right.
skills, right? But it's the nuances like that in a small theater that just, it makes it wonderful. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to ask, you're here through the end of December. What are your future plans? Do you have things scheduled after this, or how does it work?
Nothing for me.
Well, I go home to see my family for the holidays in Chicago, and then I'm currently writing a show for a web entity with my friend Jeff Hiller. So we're writing that the next 2 months.
Yeah, I just have family holiday plans. I'm sort of away until after New Year's, and then I need to stay put in New York because I've been away.
So you're based.
Huge amount.
All three of you are based in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask each of you. Let's go around. Where did you grow up? Where did you learn your skill? When did you realize you wanted to be an actor? Randy?
I'm from Nashua, New Hampshire.
Oh, so you're not far from here.
No, not far. And I started acting. I mean, I would see the tours come through Boston from the age of like 4 or 5, and I started acting in community theater in Nashua Actor Singers, it was called. I think it's still there. Probably when I was like 6.
Okay.
And I always
Right through middle school, high school.
never stopped.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Jen, where'd you grow up?
I grew up outside of Chicago in a little cornfield town, like 40 minutes west.
Which is pretty much everything outside Chicago.
Anything 30 minutes
Yeah.
radius, whether it's the water or Wisconsin,
Or corn,
it's cornfields. And I didn't really, I didn't know I wanted to do theater really until I got to college.
Really?
I didn't really do a play until my junior year, and then I played Adelaide in Guys and Dolls, and something just sort of like made sense. And
So what was your major in college?
well,
And then
no, I went to like an all-girls Catholic math and science academy, so
Okay.
I was pre-med driven, and I applied to pre-med school, and then I also applied to theater school. And my father, when I got into Boston, I went to Boston University, and I went to their actor training program, and my father actually encouraged me to go there instead of med school. And I don't know if he made the right. I don't know if I listened to the right, but I have a very different parents.
well, I was that was going to be the question. Was I can only imagine that Thanksgiving dinner, you come home and you go, Mom, Dad, the
Yeah.
whole med school
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not cutting it.
yeah. And I think they just knew their kid.
So have you gotten to play a doctor on Grey's Anatomy or
Not
something?
yet,
Like, I feel like
I'm
you played a
waiting.
nurse. I've
I
seen
played
you
a
in
nurse,
nursing.
but that was guiding light, and it was actually really funny because I was terrible. I went to Boston. Excuse me, I went to Boston University, and I didn't really. That first week I was there, I knew I was like, oh, this is where I want to be, and and I studied a semester at Lambda in London, and yeah.
Good for you, Tom. How about?
I'm from just north of D.C. in Chevy Chase.
Okay.
And no theater in me at all. I was raised as a musician, and when I went to college, a little school in Maryland, Western Maryland College, the woman who ran the department asked me if I wanted to be a show. I was waiting on her table. It was a small school. And I did, and I kind of got bit with them, but I never figured I was going to go into it. And I went into the Navy and as a musician. Came out of the Navy and went to grad school. By that time, I decided to do some theater as a director. And then I slipped back into acting in I guess, from 1970 on. Excuse me. and it just went from there. So.
Well, it's interesting, Randy, you have a different story than these guys, where you knew from a very early age. You guys didn't really get into college, So if you had the opportunity to sit in front of a young person, maybe 10 years old or such, I mean, what would you advise them as far as acting and theater and performing arts?
A 10-year-old, you said?
Sure, 10, 15, pick an age. I don't care. I just pulled that out of my ear, Jen. Come on.
No, sure. I would. You mean if I saw that I would. My niece, my younger niece, she's 9, and she shows very creative tendencies, and she shows very independent and strong, outgoing, creative tendencies, and we just keep encouraging her to go in all those directions and keep putting things in front of her, like, you want to do dance, you want to sing, play the piano. We just keep putting it in front of her and seeing what she responds to, and encouraging her, not discouraging her from any ideas that she comes up with that might not conform to a norm.
Right.
And I think that's something that was really helpful for me, that I was encouraged. It didn't quite happen until I was a junior in high school, because I was trying to conform to what the schooling and where I grew up was, which was supportive, but a little conformative. And then once I was encouraged to go with something that made sense to me and was really lighting me up, that's when it kind of fell into place. And I think when I see younger people or people wanting to go into this industry, if I see them really lit up about it, then yes, I would encourage them.
Now, the three of you are very successful in your career. Do you ever get invited back to your hometowns to talk to maybe your old elementary school, middle school, whatever it might be, and say?
I went back to my high school. My high school theater director, who is really a wonderful theater director and formative to me. He retired. He had like a 50th anniversary of teaching, like being the head of that program, and then a retirement. And I went back both times and performed like a song and talked to the students. It was really meaningful to me, actually. They're still in like this theater that I grew up performing in,
That's interesting.
What'd you sing?
I had to go back and sing the stuff that I sang in high school.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What shows did you do in high school?
The musicals I did a lot of plays, mostly plays, but the musicals we did Guys and Dolls, I did Into the Woods.
Were you the baker?
No, I was Jack.
Gorgeous.
I was Jack. Yeah.
Just Jack.
I'd like to add a little bit about talking to younger people. Little older than your niece, perhaps, but I think one thing that is really important, I would say to everybody who aspires to be in the arts, is to get a rounded education. We all know hundreds of actors who have done nothing but that all their lives, and in this day and age, not when I started, but in such a competitive time when school is so important to have, graduate school is so important to have, the debt you're going to have the rest of your life are important. It's easy for people to focus only on that.
Right.
We need actors who know about history, who know...
Well, because it makes you a more well-rounded actor, too, right?
Without any question. I'm a director, and many times I've noticed when somebody, and before you call somebody back, somebody that's very interested in me, when I call them back, I find out they've had another life.
Yeah.
And it really makes a difference. Parochial actors, there's a limited half-life of that, I think.
That's a good point.
Let me ask you a question. If you're in dance, for example, ballet or jazz, you take a class every day. And if you're a singer, you get vocal coached. Do you, as actors, continue to take training of any kind, take classes to kind of hone your craft or keep your craft in shape, especially when you leave stage theater to do TV or write or direct?
Early in my career, I was in class all the time, like basically from when I graduated to college until my early 30s, I was in acting class. And I continue to do something, whether I'm taking a writing class or I did improv for a number of years. I still, if I'm doing a lot of singing, then I'll go do vocal coaching classes. I'm usually doing something. But a lot of times when I'm working enough, I feel like collaborating with the other actors and the director and writers is a lesson in itself. So it's when I am working, I don't feel a need to supplement too much. It's usually between jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So if a guy my age says, all right, you know what, I'm going to give up the newspaper business. I want to be an actor. What's the first piece of advice you'd give me?
Don't.
I'd say it sounds like
Do you
you're
like
doing,
eating food?
Sounds like you're doing great. I don't know. I would suggest taking a class in basic like acting 101, voice and speech 101, movement, acting, voice and speech, movement, improv class, and then reading some different types of acting techniques, and seeing a lot of live performance. I would just see a lot. I would watch a lot, and I would see a lot. And that's something like, right, I want to take more classes and stuff, and I do find myself a lot of learning and keeping myself muscles moving is also by seeing theater and seeing live performance and looking at art and going downtown and going to Midtown and seeing things that are great and seeing things that are bad and seeing dance and seeing performance art and just making sure that I'm witnessing what I do as well.
Were you a dancer when you were younger? Because there are some moves you make on stage that
Thank you.
make me think you had to have stretched out at some point.
I actually was not a dancer as a
Wow.
kid. I guess I do a lot of yoga. I've been in sports my whole life,
Okay.
and I do a lot of yoga.
Yeah, so you're
and-
flexible. All right.
Yeah, and I also every now and then I keep working with a choreographer called Chris Catelli, who will put me in some shows, and I was in a dance show with him, and it required like just dancing, and you just have to he'll make you a dancer, and you just work with some of the most amazing I've worked with some of the most amazing dancers in New York City, the top, and they just sort of by watching them, I try really hard to be them. Maybe it's more just like effort and energy that you're seeing, that like I'm making you think I'm a dancer when I'm really not.
To maintain the energy that you guys have to have through a 90-minute show 8 times a week, do you change your regimen? Do you go to the gym at certain times, eat at certain times? Because you expend so much energy on stage in 90 minutes. This play, Christmas on the Rocks, is so physical. How do you do it?
Go ahead, Tom.
My path is a little different from these two. I don't have an energetic path in the play. I have my energy has to go toward being alert and just being listening all the time. That's a different thing. These guys have to do gymnastics. So I don't know what you do every day. I don't alter my path, my procedure when I come in here. I have little, we all have little weird things that we don't admit to. But my day path is not very, I do a bunch of different things.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Athletes are the same way. They have their routines, things that they do, whether it's they lace up their skates or, tar their bat, whatever it might be. But we need to take a break. So you're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show. We're with the stars of Christmas on the Rocks from Theater Works in Hartford. Randy Harrison, Tom Bloom, and Jen Harris are our guests, with Mark Auerbach and I. We're going to thank our underwriters, play some music, and we'll be right back.
live around the world.
You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show on WSKB 89.5 FM Westfield.
Here's your host, the owner of the Westfield News Group, Patrick Barry.
Good morning again, everybody. It is about 21 past the hour. We are live down in Hartford at Theater Works, right on the stage. This is my big debut, Mark. I'm on the stage.
You've been on weren't you in some radio mystery where you got killed off in the first 10 minutes?
It was called War of the Worlds. We did that in Westfield.
That's funny.
I have it's funny. I have this requirement if I'm ever asked, because of my role in with the Westfield News, if I'm ever asked to participate in any sort of stage performance, I go, you need to kill me. I don't care. So,
Patrick, it was a demand that you made to the director.
It was, right. So we did we did War of the Worlds a few years ago, and the director or the creator, whatever his name was, asked me. He goes, Patrick, I really want you in on this show. I go, all I ask is I get killed. Sure enough, I played a reporter. I was out there. I got crushed by a meteor or something, a spaceship. I don't remember, but
Dreams come true.
Absolutely. See.
But I believe you got hit by a Martian death ray.
Sure.
Yes.
I don't remember because I'm dead. I don't remember those things. But anyway, so we're live back here with Randy Harrison, Tom Bloom, and Jen Harris. Good day, lady and gentlemen. Thanks again for joining Mark and I. really do appreciate it. Before we went to break, we started to talk about routines and things that we do to, Mark and I have our routines for these shows. Mark gets here early, down 7 cups of coffee. I just show up, But each of you as professional actors, you must have, you go live, the curtain goes up at 8 p.m. So, what is it, starting at 5 o'clock? Do you start to get into, okay, I need to get my head straight? Do you review the script? Mm-hmm. What do you guys do to kind of get in the zone, as it were, leading up to the curtain going up?
I swear by naps, personally. I love naps. And because you need the focus of your energy in the day to be happening usually when everybody else is winding down. I mean, everybody's winding down, and that's when you go on stage and perform for them.
You can't have a sleepy actor.
I know. But I also find it really difficult to go right to sleep after a show because you're usually like a little adrenalized and you just want to talk to people. And but I still function really best in the morning. So I still kind of wake up kind of early, but then not that early, but for an actor kind of early.
For an actor early, yeah.
But before or after the Today Show ends?
After the Today Show.
Still early.
But then I need to usually I need to take a brief nap, usually around 4 or so, and then I wake up around 5:30 and begin the long process.
I like to take a brief nap from 4 to 5:30.
No, I can't do those 20-minute naps. I need an hour and a half. But it actually takes me. I mean, most of the time is just spent laying and doing a meditation. But it's just time where I'm not on the computer talking to friends, working out, running errands.
Do you review the script again one last time before you head out, even though you're doing it over and over?
I have for this because the rehearsal process was so short, so this stuff is still really kind of superficially in my head. But once it shows up and running for a little while, it's usually there. Unless I screw something up the night before, then I'll go back and make sure.
Very good.
Yeah.
Jen,
you have no understudies in this, so do you guys have brush-up rehearsals or?
No, I think we're pretty okay with this.
Yeah, stage management keeps it tight.
Yeah, stage management keeps it tight.
They got you by the anyway.
No worries. Yeah.
Jen, how about for you? Any routines?
I have to make sure that I eat a couple hours before I go to the theater. I have to have at least 2 hours before I go to the theater to eat a good strong meal. It has to digest, so I have to make sure I eat before 5.
So you catch the early bird special with all the senior citizens?
Yeah, I'm with them. I have to make sure I eat a big meal and get that done before 5. And with shows that, for this show, it's just voice and stretching is important because there's a lot of vocal energy. And so I'll steam my voice, my throat with a steamer, or take a hot shower or something for a while and then stretch if I haven't gone to the gym and stretched, and just make sure that my voice is clear.
Make sure the pipes are working, exactly.
Yeah. I like tea.
There you go. And Tom, how about for you? You've been doing this a while.
That's interesting. Around 4 o'clock every day, there's a certain recognition. Your body's telling you, okay.
Get ready.
Yeah. And it's go to work. And it's a little bit of nervousness in a way. So I get into this, but I cannot eat at all before. You're probably, I don't know if that you're cutting out my stomach rumbling.
I thought they were hiding some cats in the back. I
No,
didn't know
that's
what
what
that noise was.
yeah. But and then I come into the show an hour early usually. I run my whole voice tape every night to my voice cue tape just to rattle it off. One night I didn't this week, 2 shows ago.
Really?
And I blew a major line on her.
It wasn't major.
Well, I mean, we've skipped who you were.
Well, we figured it. They figured it out.
And then afterwards, I'm right to the bar and eating and just,
It's interesting because when I was here for the Friday night show, Freddie had said to me, she goes, stick around afterwards. I want to introduce you to you guys and Jacques, so I'd get to know you before today. And it's interesting, Randy, because you said afterwards you're all hyped up and you're adrenalized. I'm thinking the last thing you guys want to do after the show is socialize. I figured you're wiped out, but I didn't think about, you've been on under the lights for an hour and a half. You're still hyped and ready to go. So I kind of begged off. I'm like, Freddie, I'll catch up with them next week. I don't want to bother you guys. You're ready to go home, unwind.
That's actually kind of you. Yeah. That's actually, I'll speak for myself. I'm revved up after a show, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I have the energy to engage with a new person in the way that I would that I normally would if it was before a show or if I met them on a day that I wasn't doing a show, because there's a different kind of energy that it's like it's an internal thing where my body needs to shut down, but I'm so tired after a show. So sometimes it's difficult meeting people after a show only because I can't fully be there with you in a weird way. Does that make sense?
No, it does. Absolutely.
Same way.
Makes sense.
It's interesting, Tom. You made that mention where you missed a line or a cue the other night and kind of might have thrown things off a little bit. My girls, I have two girls. They were dancers when they were younger, competitive dancers. They're now 21 and 19. So, and whenever they get off stage, they'd be like, "Oh man, I missed that," and I go, "No one knew."
Yeah,
but they did.
Exactly. That's it. So, to Jen's point, you may have missed one thing, but the audience probably had no idea. They picked up on who the character was.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself giving yourself that same advice? Just keep moving. Just keep moving. Don't pause. Don't hesitate, because then people pick up on, something happened.
You do that. Even though when I realized something had gone wrong, that I'd missed something, I had to check myself from, don't go there, keep moving.
Yeah.
I played a lot of basketball, and I had one guy who used to say, "Tommy, that play's over," when I'd miss a layup.
Yeah.
So I always say, "Tommy, that play's over. You got to move forward."
That must be what an acting coach does too. Is just say, keep going, keep going. Unless you're in TV or film where you get the cut, let's retake or whatever it is. In stage, you just keep moving, right?
Yeah.
Has anything in the run of Christmas on the Rocks stopped the show the way the bat flying into Cat on a Hot Tin Roof stopped the show?
Yeah, I sure stopped the show my first year when I just called line because I didn't get a cue and I couldn't figure it out and we couldn't figure it out and I just went line.
Oh, that's funny.
Awful. It was the most traumatic theatrical experience.
That galvanizes an audience. The audience is instantly on your side then.
Well,
something goes wrong.
They realize you're human.
Yeah, and
I don't know if the playwright thought I was really human.
Well, I know playwrights aren't human, but when something goes wrong, there's some. I know when I see it, there's something real happening right then, and you want to. How are they going to deal with that bat?
It's funny because if you watch Saturday Night Live and you see them start to crack up a little bit, you're right. They ingratiate the audience. The audience comes into them a little bit, and you're like, all right.
You're involved.
Exactly. Well, thank you all. This has been fantastic. I've certainly learned a lot about what you do, what actors do, your successes, and so forth. So thank each of you for joining Mark and I. Randy Harrison, Tom Bloom, and Jen Harris, thanks again. Christmas on the Rocks at TheaterWorks Hartford. Mark, dates, times, locations?
Pearl Street, downtown Hartford, tworkshartford.org, and the show runs through December 23rd, and it is the non-traditional Christmas holiday tradition here in Western New England.
It is.
And who do we have coming up next?
Next is Jacques Lamar, who's a Hartford-based playwright who has written one of the playlets, or two actually, for Christmas on the Rocks. To get a chance to talk to him. He had a show here last year called The Raging Skillet, which was one of the most hilarious plays I've ever seen, and they passed around food during the show. What more could you ask for?
Why didn't you call me for that one? I like to eat. Pete.
Well, I forgot. I needed a double portion.
Also, Mark Jacques is a great bartender. Ask him about that.
Okay.
Ooh, I'm doing a drink swap with some friends in a couple weeks, so I'll
He's a
need.
special kind of bartender.
There you
ask
go.
You got to ask him.
Thank you all for joining Mark and I. Appreciate it. We're going to take a break. Thanks some of our underwriters, and when we come back, we'll have Jacques Lamar.
Live around the world.
You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show on WSKB 89.5 FM Westfield.
Here's your host, the owner of the Westfield News Group, Patrick Barry.
Good morning again, everybody. 37 minutes past the hour. You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show, special edition of the Westfield News Radio Show. Are you sitting down for this? If you haven't been listening, Mark Auerbach, the famous Mark Auerbach, is my co-host this morning. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Patrick. It's always a pleasure to be here with the famous Patrick Barry.
Are we having fun yet?
Yeah.
This is a
we
blast. This is one of my favorite shows. I love getting out of our element, out of the Studio 120, off campus, wherever the radio show is normally done, and getting down to venues like this, which are fantastic. We're in TheaterWorks.
We're on the stage where Christmas on the Rocks is playing. We have one of the playwrights who's written 2/7 of the playlets
Wow.
that are involved in Christmas on the Rocks, Jacques Lamar. And I happen to you think I'm funny. I think Jacques Lamar is funny. So I hope that those of you listening this morning get a couple of chuckles in between now and the end of the program.
It just dawned on me because I saw Jacques' beads on his wrist. You were sitting in front of me last Friday night.
Oh, was I?
Yes.
Oh, I hope I wasn't misbehaving.
No,
okay.
but I don't know who was laughing louder, you or me.
Okay.
It was a wonderful performance. Wonderful performance.
My sister, who actually lives up in Long Meadow, says that she loves going to see my plays because she thinks I laugh harder than anybody in the audience. And it's not because I think I'm so funny. I just love the way actors bring
What
the
you
stories
write,
to life
exactly.
and make things funnier than I thought they could be.
Well, thanks for joining Mark and I this morning. I really do appreciate it.
I'm in the middle of a fame sandwich between the two of you. I'm very excited.
There's a bad joke in there somewhere,
is.
but I'm
Somewhere
gonna,
there's
this
a
is
joke.
family radio, right? It's like Tiny Tim walks into a bar, right?
Exactly.
So, Mark informs me that you are not a full-time playwright.
No, although sometimes it feels like I have two full-time jobs because I have a number of different projects, either on stage or getting prepared to go on stage, or I'm writing. So there are some days when I come home from my full-time job, which I work for a company called Buzz Engine, and we put on marketing. We do marketing and events, and I get home and I put on the playwright hat and so
Bring out the pencil. Do you pen to paper or are you on the computer?
No, on the computer.
Oh,
on the
right.
computer, which is really great until the day that your script disappears.
Exactly.
So which
See,
has
I
happened to
pictured
me.
you as with the notebook in front of you, just jotting things down. No,
No, that's
tapping away, huh?
Tapping away. I mean, Eddie Sanchez, who wrote the Clara from the Nutcracker piece in Christmas on the Rocks, he writes his stuff in longhand.
Wow.
And then when he types it in, that's when he edits the piece.
Okay, makes sense.
But to me, I can write twice as fast if I'm typing than if I'm handwriting.
Okay.
And I don't have to wonder, what did I write? So
I can't read that.
yeah, I only have to
you're
worry about like typos.
Former doctor in your past life can't read your own
Yeah,
handwriting.
no, it's gotten worse and worse. I've gotten older.
So, of the 7 playlets that are part of Christmas on the Rocks, you have written 2. Which 2?
I wrote Charlie Brown. The piece is called Merry Christmas, Blockhead. And that has been in the show all 6 years.
Okay.
And then last year, right from the beginning of Christmas on the Rocks, Rob wanted Zuzu from It's a Wonderful Life as one of the characters in the show. And there just wasn't... The playwright that he had in mind for it said, I'm just too busy this year. And he kept going back to him, but he just couldn't get it was David Lindsay Abair to have time to write the piece because he's incredibly busy. And so last year he came to me and said, I really want to do Zuzu, and so I was given the opportunity to write a second piece. So a lot of people don't know who Zuzu is, which surprises me because she's got one of the biggest lines in that movie.
Well, and my wife and I have this battle because she can she can impersonate, the every time a bell, and it just like nails on a chalkboard to me. However, when Jen did it the other night, and I got the elbow in the side from my wife. It was, and again, that you and I were laughing. The twitch that Jen was doing.
She's unbelievably funny.
Perfect.
She's unbelievably funny.
Did you write it with her in mind?
Yeah. The hope is obviously that other theaters, other actors will have the chance to do it. But it's, knowing that she was going to do it, I knew that it needed to be as wacky as possible. And so
to meet her personality.
And so, to chat with her, she's not insane, but when she's on stage, especially
she was
in
very
the
well
show,
composed during the last interview.
During the show, she's unbelievable in her 4 different characters, and they're all very different, but each of them has this kind of underlying Jen Harris wonderful sense of twisted humor.
Well, I don't know whether you heard when we were talking to them earlier. I laughed throughout, but the one thing I think I laughed at more was when Randy entered in the last piece and did the Charlie Brown walk.
Yes, which is not in the script.
That's what they said.
Not in the script.
He said he tried it, and then Jen picked up on it. I go, that's a perfect addition of the script.
And they wouldn't tell me. I saw it the same time you saw it, and so that was a not a shock, but a pleasant surprise. That they're still finding stuff.
How much time did it take you to write these?
I'm a very fast writer, and Charlie Brown, I wrote a completely different script for the first draft, and we felt like it was maybe a little too dark and didn't necessarily take Charlie Brown on a real journey. And so what you're seeing in the show is actually my second take on it. But usually when I'm writing, it's the pieces are about 12 minutes or so, 13 minutes. So I think maybe a few hours. There are playwrights who agonize over every word and whatnot, and I just sit down and crank it out. Partially because I have a full-time job and don't have the luxury of
spending
forever.
your day writing these things, right?
And so, and I think Zuzu came very quickly because Rob already had the concept. She's afraid of bells. She keeps freaking out when the bells go off.
Patti LaBelle.
So.
You're giving away some laugh lines for people who haven't seen it.
Oh, that was funny.
So I think Raging Skillet, which you mentioned, I probably wrote that in 3 days. But then I've done rewrite after rewrite.
We should probably say that Raging Skillet was a full-length play that had its world premiere here at TheaterWorks, and it's about a chef and her Jewish mother. And the chef is well known. I can't.
Chef Rossi.
Chef Rossi, and she wrote a book, kind of a memoir, and you adapted it.
Yeah.
But in the course of the book and in the course of the handouts that were in the press kit, there were recipes for some of these kind of outlandish, cutting-edge
you told me about this.
Food things. And I brought an 18-year-old with me who said, you've got to try that potato chips and chocolate thing. And the recipe was included. And that was his takeaway from it was this show had the best food ever. And they would pass food around the audience. But that play has gone on from here and been done in other theaters. And it really has a life.
It's after it was here, we did a reading of it at the Jewish Play Project in New York. That was a one-night event with Judy Gold, the comic, and then it was at the Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theater up on the Cape this summer, and it just recently concluded a run at the New Jewish Theater in St. Louis, and we're going to be doing a reading of it in Cambridge. So if any of your listeners are around on December 17th, it'll be at the Nora Theater in Cambridge, and it's a free reading.
Has that play changed at all since or have you rewritten it or revised it since it played
I've
TheatreWorks?
definitely I've added a few things. I've to try and give Mom a little bit more depth and change some jokes. Tried to find the heart of the play. And it's really, the audiences have been loving it. So there were some people who were a little offended by it here, but I think overall the show is headed in a real positive direction, and it seems to have a life, which is nice.
How did you become a playwright? Like, why did you go to school for it? Where did this, or did you just, as life goes on, you're sitting in your office, maybe you're writing some things, you know what, I might be able to do this.
Well, I first started playwriting back in the 80s. I was working at a theater. My after school or summer job was working for a theater up in New Hampshire, where I'm from. And I asked the artistic director of the young company if I could write some of the children's plays, because they had to write generally about 6 original shows every summer. Wow. And they wouldn't repeat them. So my first masterwork was Rapunzel, and it was I decided to set it in Arabia, and it had this. I didn't yet know that you don't beat a joke into the ground once you have it. And so the witch was named Cobra the Sand Witch because they were in the desert. And sandwich! And so by the end of the show, the audience was like,
sandwich.
And so I wrote 2 children's plays, and they were pretty successful. And then there was just this long stretch where I didn't write plays, except for in college. I took one playwriting class, and we did little short scenes for that. I wasn't a playwriting major. I wasn't a theater major. I wanted to be an English major. My father said he wouldn't pay for it, and he said, "You'll never make any money with an English degree." And now I write. So
exactly.
Thank you. It wasn't until about 15 years ago I started writing for a drag performer named Varla Jean Merman, who gave me the opportunity to co-write her shows that she does. And I don't know if you've ever seen her, Mark.
I saw her live at the Academy of Music in Northampton, and you had scripted a video of hers.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I help with co-writing videos. Right now, she's actually going to be performing in New Orleans with the New Orleans Philharmonic, and they wanted to have her rewrite Let It Go. It was still supposed to be for kids, which I thought was a bit of an odd choice to bring in a drag queen. But so I rewrote it from Let It Go to Yellow Snow, and that was rejected.
So isn't that Frank Zappa?
Yes.
You watch where the Huskies go, and don't you eat that yellow snow? Something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. But it was it was rejected. So now it's Let It Snow. Boring. But I did get some jokes in there. But these shows that Varla does, she does them up in Provincetown, and then she tours them around the country, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm going to go perform this over in London, or I'm going to perform at Joe's Pub in New York City, or I'm performing at the Sydney Opera House, and suddenly stuff that I write is going all over the world.
Audience, yeah, that's got to be very reassuring to your talent.
Yeah, well, it's very exciting that she saw that in me, and so at a certain point I was like, I really want to write for the theater again, because she does comedy cabaret stuff. So I've worked in theater administration for 25 years or so, maybe 30. Wow. Between doing box office, doing group sales, a little bit of development work, marketing, public relations. And at a certain point after, and I'm sure you're this way, having seen a zillion plays at this point in your life, Mark, that you get to a point and you're like, ugh, I could write a better play than that. And to me it was, I would see plays and I'd be like, oh, I would fix it this way, or I would have done this differently, or I never would have put this on the stage, or what have you. And it gets to a point where you're saying, if you're saying that to yourself and not actually doing it, you have no business saying it, because that person who took the time to write the play and all the people who took the time to mount it and all the effort, they made it happen. And so, it starts with the play, it starts with the words. And I was like, I really feel like I've got something to say, and started writing plays.
Are you at a point in your life where you can give up your full-time job and be a full-time playwright?
No. Short answer, no.
You want to think about that?
But as I mentioned, David Lindsay-Abaire, he's a playwright that I adore, and he wrote, I think it won the Pulitzer Prize, Rabbit Hole, which is a beautiful, heartbreaking, funny play. He's written some really kind of wacky stuff. They've done a few of his shows here, Kimberly Akimbo and Good People. And I brought him when I was working at the Mark Twain House. We were doing a playwrights panel. And he just said flat out, here's a Pulitzer Prize winner whose stuff is on Broadway, and he's, doing the book for Shrek the musical, and he's, and he is like, it is not possible to make a living being a playwright.
Really?
He said, you can be a playwright and a teacher. You can be a playwright and, someone who edits things or what have you. A lot of playwrights will write for television or, screenwrite for film or what have you. But the issue with playwriting, and I'm not complaining because I'm really fortunate to get my stuff on stage as frequently as I do, is that you never know how many productions of your work are going to happen. And so you could have a banging year. Like, I've had a really good year this year. And then next year, I've got two things as best I know. And so, this year I did not make enough to live off of, but I made a nice augmentation to my salary.
Right.
And then next year, I may be able to afford a few tubs of popcorn. So it's really it's feast or famine. Right. So people are like, when are you going to take that jump and just write full time? And it's like, when I decide I don't need to eat.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's the challenge.
Very good. Very good. So you're working on a couple of projects for next year. Do you know what your target is, where you want them performed?
It's interesting because you can write a play and then hope that you're going to get some opportunity to see it on stage. But I really try to do what I can to ensure that it's going to be on stage.
Well, at this point in your playwriting career, you know a lot of people.
I do.
And you have a successful track record, so that should put you, above a lot of the other submissions that people get.
Absolutely. But, I'm surprised, not that I'm like, well, I'm calling, so of course you're going to take the call. But, there are people that I've worked with for years who, you'll write and say, hey, I've got this play I'd really like for you to read it and consider it. And they won't respond. And or it's a theater like my play I Loved, I Lost, I Made Spaghetti just had its 12th professional production. It's been done in various cities across the U.S. I don't have an agent still, so that makes it a bit difficult in terms of I'm the one that really has to go out there and do a lot of the legwork, or someone hears about the play and will ask to see the script. So there are theaters that did literally like standing room business with I Loved, I Lost, I Made Spaghetti. And then I would go back and say, I've got this other play called Born Fat, or I've got this other play called Raging Skillet. And they won't respond. And so, there are some that, like Theater Works, where I have a really terrific artistic home and ongoing relationship. I'd say Seven Angels Theater and Waterbury. They've done two of my plays. And we're in talks about doing another new play. But there's no guarantee that the theater that loves you today is going to be a theater that's going to answer your email or call next week.
Well, it's kind of like an actor. You don't know. You might have a blockbuster and a award nomination this year, but next year nothing.
Yeah, and it's and I think my life is so much easier than an actor's life. It truly is, because they have to, take themselves offline 2 months especially if they're leaving New York, offline for 2 months. I mean, they're working and they're getting paid, but then on their off days, they're running back into New York to audition in the hopes that they're going to have something to walk into when they leave. Yeah. So there are big stretches of time where they're not working in theater, not getting to do what they love. Anytime I want, except for when I'm getting paid for my job, my day job, which is currently paying me to be here on your radio station.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I can sit and write. I can work. And I mean, I guess they can be in their apartment and act, but they really want to be on stage and getting that electricity from an audience.
Are any of the works or any of the plays that you've written likely to be adapted for TV or movies?
I've been asked by a few people about I Loved, I Lost, I Made Spaghetti. Some people are like, oh, it could be a series or what have you. Rossi's actually written her own film adaptation of Raging Skillet that is not based on my script. But to me, my love is theater. I think if I were to get an agent and get some of these scripts published, then that would be a higher likelihood. I have co-written a screenplay for a movie for Varla Jean that was produced and screened at various film festivals until it disappeared into oblivion. But it's not really my thing. The money would be nice, but it's a different animal.
Passion, don't necessarily follow the dollar.
Yeah, well, again, if I was a playwright full time, I'd be banging on that door because that's where the money is. I mean, if you get a successful play, the next play TheaterWorks is doing A Doll's House Part 2. The playwright Lucas Hanath wrote this play on a commission, which means you get some money up front and then you get a royalty, and then it went to Broadway and he gets a better royalty, and he had a successful run. And last year it was the most produced play in the United States, or maybe it's this year. And so he's going to be good for a while. He's going to be good for a while, but for me, it's just been kind of catch as catch can, but I've been very lucky, and I like to think that I keep good relationships with the theaters.
We've only got about a minute left.
Oh, my goodness.
I did want to ask you...
Buy your tickets, buy your tickets, buy your tickets.
Buy your tickets now.
TheaterWorksHartford.org.
Do you plan on reworking some of the playlets for Christmas on the Rocks for next year? Tweaking them a little, maybe taking one or two out, adding a new one?
That's Rob Ruggiero, the conceiver and director's decision. I've written a bunch that have hit the cutting room floor. We're going to be reading one of them publicly for the first time here at TheaterWorks. So I'm excited about that on December 17th.
Very good. Very good. Well, Jacques, thank you very much for joining Mark and I. I really do appreciate it. Mark, it's always fun having you on as a guest host.
Patrick, it's always fun working with you. And it's great to have Jacques on. I enjoyed your work so much.
Thank you.
And I will say, Mark has raved about your work. He hasn't enjoyed it. He raves about your work.
Did you hear that, theaters?
Hey, there you go. I'll give you that extra plug at the end. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining Mark and I on the Westfield News Radio Show live from TheaterWorks in Hartford. On the stage of Christmas on the Rocks. It has been a fantastic show, a wonderful 2 hours. I've learned so much about the theater industry, the actors, the playwrights, the directors, the artistic side of it. This has just been a wonderful, wonderful show. Thank you to all the folks at TheaterWorks for allowing Mark, Pete and I to come down here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I will see you on the radio in next week. My guest is Alex Dixon, General Manager from MGM Springfield. Mark, you're going to have half of this tomorrow.
Well, no, on Friday we'll have the first half of this, the following Friday the second half, and on December 21st I've got several of my theater cronies that are reporters and reviewers, and we're going to recap 2018 on stage in Connecticut and Western Mass.
Very good. Sounds riveting. That's it for us for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. I'll see you on the radio next week.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows. All of the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games. Won't you guide my sleigh tonight? Then how the reindeer loved him as they shouted out with glee. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history. You know Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen, Comet and Cupid and Donner and Blitzen. But do you recall the most famous reindeer of all? Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows. All of the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games. Then on a foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight? They heard the reindeer laughing as they shouted out with glee. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history. You'll go down in
The Westfield News Show and Artsbeat Radio here at 89.5 FM WSKB is part of community radio at Westfield State University. Your hosts today are Patrick Berry of the Westfield News Group and Mark G. Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. Our special thanks to the folks at TheaterWorks in Hartford, Rob Ruggiero, artistic director, Freddie McInerney, Michael McKiernan, Eric Orth, and Cece Chapman. TheaterWorks is presenting Christmas on the Rocks through the end of December. For information on TheaterWorks programs, twhartford.org.